Hey everybody, I hope you can see and hear tonight. Again, I have a little bit of a delay in this. I'm not sure why there's a delay in the system. It's not otherwise, so hopefully you can see that. And we can catch up to where we are here. I've had a lot of weird technical difficulties, imagine that, today on a full moon, right? And it's been almost to the point where it's like give up, right? It's been a crazy day on that. So let's see if you can see and hear. Okay, wait a minute. No, it's not happening there. Hang on. Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Here we are. We're filing in now. There is a delay. I'm so sorry. I don't know why this is going on. It's kind of hard to troubleshoot in this direction. I will see what I can do. But anyway, nice to be here with you. And hello, everybody. So I've had some crazy wild technical difficulties, is what I was saying. And I'm looking to see why this isn't going live on YouTube either. This is what I mean. This is what I've dealt with all day long. Like literally all day long. It's crazy, crazy. I know. So anyway, it's nice to see you all. Hello, 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 hello. I see everybody on here on YouTube. And yeah, what is going on, right? So anyway, did you see the drop this morning or from Russell's channel? And I want you to go over there and check it out if you haven't seen it. I did post the link in the chat, and I want you to know that that's a really important drop. They're kind of foreshadowing something for you, and that is really great because back in 2019, 2020, people were coming to me asking me if that very video was, in fact, something that would be valid. And at the time, the narrative was so strong with Trump that everybody leaned that direction. And people would come to me regularly and say, does this mean Russell? And I said, yes, I think it does. I do. I think everything is lining up to that. And so I do believe that's true. And I want you to know that. I think it's really actually a thing. And it's awesome. So that was an awesome drop for you to tie together, especially anyone that's new to the venue and new to the entire narrative here. But that is a incredible drop. If you think about it, what you heard from William Cotel also speaks to that very drop, and that drop happened years ago. He talked about Snowden. He talked about that coming in. Isn't that interesting? He talked about the goal. He talked about the man that would be among the people. Now, a lot of people say this is Trump, and they want it to be. But who has the ultimate takedown of the system? And I mean, I have to laugh at this point. If I drank alcohol, this would be a day to do it because I don't, but it would be with the technical things I've encountered, which you just have to go, okay, you're being tested, right? I have worked on the thing that I want to share with you tonight 3 separate times because different pieces and parts would disappear and go away. And not because I'm incompetent with it, but because it just vanished, just off the computer, gone. So I had to start again and then start again and start again. So I said, okay, I'm good with this. We're gonna meet because that's more important, right? But it is on Russell's channel. That's what I'm talking about. I did put it in the comments. So anytime I speak to you about what's upcoming or whatever, you can go to the community part of Making Life Brighter on YouTube, and there you'll find the channel update, if you will. and whatever it is, if I'm sharing a link with you that's very important, or if in fact it's something like today's drop of, yes, the Gould is gold. And that was a great drop with Kim Clement, who's since passed away. And Kim Clement was someone that was a prophet and would prophesize things that were coming. And isn't it interesting that he talks about the man with the gold, right? So that had been a question mark all the way along in the last couple of years, really. And people had come out of the woodwork asking me, do you think that's him? Do you think that's him? Because everybody's on the Trump bandwagon. And I said, I really do think it's Russell. I believe that it's pertaining to Russell. It makes the most sense, and especially with what Cotel just told you. And now we have that almost as affirmation. I mean, each week of these weeks right now are things you can't make up. It's coming out of the blue, one by one by one. Even if it looks wrong, it's not wrong. There's some strange timing to everything, and it's correct. It's all correct. So we're on track for something magnificent. And if you listen to that again very clearly, listen to the ending of that, because it's talking about timing again. And we've been talking about June. We've been talking about the timing in June. We've been talking about the upcoming timing. So I would really focus on that again. And I also put a link in there, and a couple of you caught it, about the fellow who has the state of corruption, and he is Mike Gill. They keep trying to get me to interview him, and I did put a request out for that to him, but I haven't heard back from him. So that's okay. I trust all things are meant to be as they're meant to be, and I'm not one to push a narrative down a river. If it falls into line and it lines up, super. So Mike Gill happens to be on top of all the corruption, but in the link that I dropped in the community channel there, a couple links back, you'll see, go listen to that, because that explains to you why Russell did what he did and why it's so incredibly epic that people cannot digest it. They can't quite grasp it. I've talked to multiple military people now, and those people have no idea what the Title IV flag is. So they said, well, what is it? And I said, yeah, how do I explain that exactly? So I had to go back and look, and it's the dimensions of the flag, and each, like Obama worked off of some kind of flag that didn't have the correct dimensions. And it's a 1 by 1.9 flag is the Title IV flag. And then there's a boat flag, and then there's the Obama flag, and all these other flags. Hello, everybody, that are not actually anything that you can stand on, that the law can stand on. There's nothing behind that flag. And so with Russell taking the Title IV flag, if you understand, it means that he is able to buoy you to the sea of space. That means all space. All space. No one else has jurisdiction in all the space around you. But the Title IV flag is that for the entire world. So that's interesting to me, because that shows that this is a very tricky kind of situation we're in currently if our military folks don't know that or don't have that closure. That regulation accordingly, and I'm waiting to get the download. If I didn't have to do all the tech stuff today, I would have had it for you, but it is what it is. So the actual information comes out of a book by Dave Wynn-Miller, apparently, but it's also part of the Army regulations. And I need to prove that to you, and I'm looking to do that. So we'll be looking that up. However, it's in there. And if it's in there, then people should know that. But somehow folks don't know that. So when I posed that to William Cotel, and he came back to me with a text. Oh, he's even speaking to me now. A text about, hold on a minute. Okay, so he actually showed me chapter 1 of that Army regulation, and number 4 is Pledge of Allegiance to the Flag, Manner of Delivery, which is supposed to be what the flag title is, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's not correct. There is actually something else that spells out the Title IV flag, and they are to have known it, but they don't know it. And I'm not saying they're incompetent. I'm saying this is a bigger picture. I'm watching the comments come in. I'm watching the changes in what people are saying in terms of what they understand and don't understand. And I had to sit back and say, why is it that I get the big picture? Why is it that I understood that right away? Because I go back and I listen to these interviews and I think it's a big pill to swallow for somebody that doesn't understand it. But it's because it's hard to imagine that the entire world is acting in fraud because the world's still functioning. But as I keep telling you, they're not telling you. And many people around them don't even know. Now, Congress, senators, the top people know, because he would be in a position, if he walked into a room today, that they would take off running, and they simply would not be able to stand in the room, because fact and fiction can never meet. What he means by that is anyone that is not in the quantum at this point does not exist in the reality of the current state of what really is. And so they're like actors. They're all like actors. And I find this interesting because Melania's post was about how it's all a play and it's all scripted and it's really there. And now DeSantis and Trump will come together in August, and then it will be, all these things. So it doesn't need to happen, though. And people will say, well, it's happening because Trump needs to be the first one up to take out the bad guys and so on. I don't think you can take out the bad guys unless you put it in quantum. That's what I'm trying to get at. This is a transshipment war. This is about the transshipment of humans, of cargo, of vessels, of gold, of everything. And it comes down to that no matter what. So in the current state of being, because of what he did in 1999, there's nothing else greater that stands on that. And some will say, okay, we're going to go back to what's really underneath it all. And hi, Ron, I see you here. Yes, there really is a conspiracy in the military complex and so on, but that's even above. Even Russell says it's above just regular government. It's kind of just a very tiny elite group of people at a very technologically advanced position, because they have all the money to do that with, that put themselves into a particular position. Hello, Tony. Hello, everybody. Hello, RK. Hello, Grace. I got your letter, Grace, by the way. I'm contemplating that. Hi, Amy. So, hello, Sproutcast. Hi, Kelly. What I'm getting at here is this is a really big picture. And to have compassion for the people that cannot understand it yet or haven't grasped it. Because once you get on, it's like getting on an ice rink. You step off onto that ice rink and you just go, or a roller skating rink. And then you're on and you get it. And you learn the details of it, which answers the questions. And what I was putting together today, or trying desperately to do, is, again, almost a reiteration of this. But every time you hear what he does and what he's saying, more comes to pass. More is there. And right now it's rendering. It's about 65% done. So we're going to chat some more until that's done and see if we can get that on tonight. And if it doesn't work, what I'll do is as soon as it's done rendering, I'll post it and you can see it that way. Okay. But I've really been contemplating a lot of what I know, what I don't know, what we need to know, and why it's vital to get your usury straight. There is no other system at this point in time. There is no other system, and there's really no other jurisdiction that can trump this system. I can't help it. So the big picture is something that we need to help each other with, and even those that are struggling to just grasp the picture, they keep leaning back looking for the savior of the day. It's going to depend on us, and it's going to depend on those who are live life claimants to call him forward. Now, he may do a performance that sets the stage for that, but just the same. Your usuries are very important. If you don't get them in alignment, you may not have the ability to do so if they make a move and try to roll over to digital. It makes it harder to go and put a stamp on something and do that. So it's kind of helpful to you to do that now while there's that space and time, if you will. But some of the things that he really talks about, and Kim Clement talked about, is that the man will come from the people. He will be one among the people. And had that prophecy not come my way at the time it did, I probably wouldn't have put much credence into it. But because it sat right in the middle of the interviews that I was doing with Russell at the time, it made a lot of sense suddenly. Here he was making gold. He was trying to get it online and speak to Trump, and they wouldn't have him. How could they not have him? He's the commander-in-chief. How does that work? So in this case, we are arguing back and forth around a narrative that needs to end. The whole of the narrative needs to stop because there is really nothing other than the quantum. It's the final and complete jurisdiction. The post office controls the courts. Do you understand? The post office, not the post office you go to necessarily, those that there are employees there, but the quantum post office, what he did to correct the system. He's the guy. And if he doesn't come forward, you're going to meet more and more of this kind of fiction, fraudulent play out that's like gaslighting you from every direction. Now let's go back to Mike Gill for a minute. Mike Gill is a whistleblower, and he's a guy that had his own personal wealth that ended up going down a rabbit hole and calling out the function of what's behind all the corruption. So he got into the banking, and that link again is on the community page, and you can go there. But that's so important for you to hear because he spells out for you the intricacy of the problem. Now, Russell saw that intricacy of the problem. He understood it forward and back in such a depth that depth then translated into action. And the action came forward in the correction. So it's sort of led on a trail. What Mike Gill is missing is the quantum. He's missing the ability to use a tool that's in place both for himself and to call it forward. It's true that, like William said, voices and numbers matter, of course. But in the correctness, once you apply that, it's almost like the game is over. It's like checkmate. So in this case, someone mentioned on here about Karen Hooties. Russell talked to me about her back in 2019, 2020. She had been, actually, she had been with us until not too long ago, but they just harassed the living daylights out of her, and they do that. They're ruthless. It's crazy. It's such a dark, difficult game. But when you do stand in the now space, in your own now space, and you stand on that, you have a mighty jurisdiction you don't realize. And it takes maturity to manage that jurisdiction. And I hope compassion, because I see a lot of people out here in the venue even poking back and forth to make gameplay when in fact people need help. They need a hand up, they need a hand hold together, because that makes a strong chain. There's no time to wait to put in your usuries and get them set in place. That's a fact. Russell had asked me to go live that time, and I'm sorry we didn't get to do that, but he did ask me that because he was concerned with the borders. So William Cotel came with a timely message to tell us similar information that Russell wanted to share. And that again speaks to what was just put out about Kim Clement. It's all coming together, and it's all kind of lining up in the bigger picture of what is. When I started the interviews, Russell would say to me, "We won. You need to know, we won. I'm that guy, and we won." And I'd say, "Okay." And he could see I wasn't on the fence about him ever. I actually always felt intuitively that there's an answer here. I just didn't understand what I didn't understand. So many people that are in the room right now have come in and they don't really know. Why is this important? What do I need? And they want the technicalities. Am I going to lose my Social Security? Am I going to lose my other? If the fiction system that's out there currently running in the world right now ends Social Security, then yes, you're going to lose your Social Security. It won't be because Russell tanked your Social Security. It'll be because the fraudulent side of the fence did. And yet, if you set your usuries in place, you might actually be able to somehow sustain things like that. Or you will have jurisdiction in a way that you didn't before that you can utilize to your benefit. I don't have an answer to what they're doing in the venue at fortheclaimofthelife.com about people and scholarships or people that can't afford to get on. I did ask about that and suggested that there would be something like that. But I'm also suggesting again that perhaps people might band together in their local community, or whomever you know, your friends, whatever, help each other, or get those mighty corporate sponsors to help put their money where their mouth is. Actually, we should start a special one funded by all the pharmaceutical companies. What do you think? That would be good, right? The pharmaceutical companies could sponsor people for life claims. Hey, you got to get creative. But I'm trying to think of some of the questions that other people have asked along the way. First of all, you've been given a gift in the tool, and the gift was laid out for you under lots of safeguarding and safekeeping by Russell for you, including things you don't even know yet, many things. And hopefully one day he'll have the opportunity to tell us not too long from now. And it would be great if people could come along and just simply take hold of what they're doing and begin to learn. I tell you this and come to you this way because it's on my mind a lot and I want to answer your questions. Well, Grace, there is seemingly some kind of change, but I think it might be temporary. And it looks to me like there's something in the works for a timely, bigger change. And so I think that was the impetus for the talk the other week. But we do need to take hold of your communities, really. I mean, we're having all kinds of things happen all around us in short order. Just like William was talking about in the first interview we did, yes, they're bringing people over the border in crazy sums. We're also coming to the place where they're now creating states of emergency in counties all over the country. And what do hardworking people that go to work, take care of themselves now do when their community is inundated? How do you embrace that? And do you embrace that a certain way? Well, the one thing you would do is get your usuries set so that they can't harvest you or toy with you. And if you wonder what that is or what that means, go listen to Mike Gill at State of Corruption and take a listen to what he goes through and the things that happen and see what it would be. Because all of us that have stood on the front line, so to speak, have had something like that happen. I believe that when you stand in the light, you are blessed, and you stand with the light, that you hold that space. I think that's important because we have to recognize the place in which we are anchored, the place in which we stand. What do you stand on? What do you stand for? How do you conduct yourself in everyday activity and with your fellow man? Because arguing back and forth and prodding people to wake up is one thing, but enervating them to the point of their nervous system being in a state of agitation, that won't help us in the end. You won't be able to think straight if you're in a state of agitation. There is no red and blue. There have been 0 presidents since 1999. That's the part people need to understand that don't yet get it. There has not been any presidents since 1999. So everything you're seeing is fraud. Everything. Every person operating, everybody in there, all of that is fraud. Technically. I'm talking technically. People will say, well, Trump signed over and we're now a republic. Well, if we go back to the real jurisdiction of who signed what when, it does not, nothing negates what's happened with the grammar. It's gone all the way back to the banking systems, the postal system, Bern, Switzerland. It's extensive what Russell did. No other human being on planet Earth has ever gone to that length to correct anything. So that's food for thought. And, you know, I was telling you before that many people are going in and getting their life claims, and the postal clerks are like, what's going on here? There's a lot going on, especially down in Arkansas, apparently. So that's kind of neat. That's fun to have that happen. But what are we really doing? I want to bring to your attention that real lives are being fought for and lost. People are really being harvested and harassed, like the lady in Texas that lost her baby. Can you imagine that they come into your house and take your newborn and you don't have any jurisdiction to stand on? There's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't even hire a lawyer to stop it. Could you imagine that? What would you do? If you had a claim for your child and you had a claim for yourself, technically they cannot do that. So well, I'm not going to get into a thing about what is doing or not doing, but I'll tell you what's been done. I believe that performances are in the works so that there's upcoming closure, okay? I believe that's happening. And I believe that you need to understand that everything you're seeing on TV, just pretend like all the news turned off and you never saw it again. And all the narratives that you heard don't come forward and you don't hear them anymore. What then? what then would be really functioning and where? Right now, we get to see the stirring of different narratives, but that keeps everybody stirring. But there's no real implementation of the shift that's already taken place. It is a process. It is, RK. It's a process. But the process needs to have some acceleration because people need to see more quickly that, in fact, this is going to turn into potential mayhem. So Kim Clement was talking about basically an invasion. And when the peoples come from another country, right? And I don't know, is that the people crossing over the border, or is that an entire military invasion? When the peoples come from another space, that's when all this will go on. But remember, Russell filed in 2020 at the Supreme Court for Russia and China not to invade us in the grammar, on contract. He had to go about doing that, and the stack was really high. It was very thick under the Title IV flag. So we have a place now where you have more knowledge and more closure, and we have to come to a space of taking that knowledge and using it wisely so that you can stand in what would be more correctness. And as you do that, more things come to you in the quantum. It becomes more clear why he says fact and fiction can never meet. It's because it's all been disqualified. The voting systems have been disqualified. The fraudulent banking has been disqualified. The voting systems were disqualified. There's nothing functioning technically in the world, really. They know it, but they won't tell you. They keep trying to run another game. And if they can just get that other game and everybody to go over here and all the flock of birds to go that way, the game continues. The war machines continue. The strange dealings with other countries continue. The trafficking accelerates. What Mike Gill is talking about and up against is accelerating. So what's interesting to me is that Trump never talked about what Mike Gill is talking about. Russell has, but Trump never did. He never talked about what's going on behind the scenes. He alluded to it, but he never actually talked about it. My question, and the question I asked 3 times ago, is who has an actual solution on the table? A real solution. Nobody but Russell has a real solution on the table. If you take that and use it for yourself, you will see. It's not a gameplay. It's already done. It's done years and years and years ago. So I'm going to see exactly, well, will the quantum take care of you? The quantum isn't set as a government structure just yet, but that could happen very quickly because Russell needs to come forward first. And in that way, eventually, yes, it probably would. But right now, it's not. This is not a Medicaid system. Okay, this is a correct your usuries so they can't mess with you right now. That's the bottom line. That's the first step for you, and that's what we need to realize. From there, we can see that in fact we have the opportunity to take control of our usuries, which would give us the ability to safeguard our families for whatever the next gameplay is. And see, Trump is talking about that with his banking system and his money and coming back and all that. There's a solution there for people, and they're waiting for that. Like that's going to be the solution. But he's not also giving you closure and telling you that the system is already changed and done. So I'm I'm not sure why he hasn't done that. It's been presented many times. You hear a lot of conversation and rhetoric about what's not working in the world, but you're not seeing a grand solution. So I'm putting that out there because what was put out yesterday is a foreshadowing. And the Kim Clement, I do believe, is pointing at Russell. I just want you to know that. Okay, so another crazy thing has happened on the way to the forum. And it just happened, actually, just like maybe an hour and a half ago. That I told you about the Grammy album and the song, and the Break These Chains, which many of you like, and thank you very much. Well, I was talking with a fellow that's kind of gathering everybody together to put this together as an album. And you won't believe this. Like, I can't even make this kind of thing up out of the blue. It's so crazy. This guy that I talked to tonight, I almost dropped the phone. I'm not joking. He ran for president against Maduro. I was like, wait, what? I said, you ran against Maduro? He said, yeah, I left the country, but I ran against Maduro. I'm like, okay, I'm calculating here. Musician, candidate, like what is this? So I said to him, I said, you ran for president. I said, I just did a show on this. I just talked about this. He said, yes, it's a terrible thing, but he's a really kind of lighthearted fellow. And I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I couldn't believe it. So I said to him, okay, now you have my attention. And at some point you're going to have to come on this show and explain this because my head is kind of bursting. I did not expect that. I certainly didn't expect that today. So anyway, okay, so how might those who are on disability keep or change their users? You would have to learn the grammar and be able to file in your useries with wherever your disability is. In other words, wherever that comes from, wherever you receive that from, there's some kind of contract or the way you contract with them is what needs to be corrected, and you need to land back on them that you have your claim and so on. But that requires probably a helping hand or a class or a tutor or something, because you can't just walk out there and do it. You need to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. So there is a slight learning curve. That's why I'm kind of urging you to hurry up and change your usuries. But usuries are basic first step. Usuries meaning gas, electric, your home, your car, your driver's license, your banking, things like that, right? So the things that give you basic function in the world. After that, then there is more learning curve about how to use that for contract. And so anything that you're doing, people are expecting the government to do X. Well, eventually, one day, all of it will be turned around in a better world where the government will be under its proper jurisdiction, but at the same time, it will be properly gold backed as well. And I say that in terms of legally, lawfully. Remember, nobody has a flag right now in order to create banking from. And without that flag in the periodic table, nobody's trumped Russell's periodic table because they can't. And all of that sets the terms and weights and measures for global banking. He is the one that created the quantum banking system. They stole the quantum banking system to mimic it, just like they've done everything else. How's that going to play out? I don't know. Stay tuned, because we don't know. But that's a fact. So if at least you understand the gameplay and the fact, you can kind of tidy up your yard and make sure that all is well in your space. And maybe navigate yourself in a neutral position out of the way of those that battle back and forth, because it is a spiritual battle, and this is a time to be strong and together and in the light. And, you know, there has to be a point at which people focus on joy. There is very little focus on joy anywhere out there right now. It's on the never-ending narrative of the bad guys moving forward. And it's true. There is a lot of that. People will call it evil. People will call it Satanism. They'll call it a million things. But all those things, you have a choice moment to moment. And when you are in a space of centeredness, alignment with spirit, the grace of that lines up on your behalf as well. And then more happens. So how did you get here? How did you come to this space to hear this narrative right here? That's some kind of lineup. That's some kind of ping to your spirit in some way, right? It's happening. So it happened to me when I first stumbled upon Russell. I didn't go looking for him. I didn't go looking for any of these narratives. I didn't. It landed on my doorstep, and I said, wow, I didn't fully understand, but I knew in my heart of hearts that made sense. If that's true, then that spells out the final chess play. That's it. Game over at that point. Because now the thing is, how do we get all the chess players that are phony off the chessboard? That's the bigger thing. The chessboard is completely full of phony, fraudulent chess pieces. There's only one king left on the board, and technically, if you want to get down to it, he is a king in a way because he's sovereign and he's the one at the top of that chain who did that. He set the tone, he set the precedent, he set the terms. Technically, he set the terms for you. You would buoy to that system with the claim, and I'm telling you that the flag is allowing for standing on law, lawfully standing on things in time and space. So, not time, but rather space. Contracting in law through all space. The now space, because everything is the now space. So that seems flippant to some people, like, oh, that's just something silly that people say. No, it's really actually real. The now-space is a jurisdiction at this point. And it's a jurisdiction that, unless Trump has a claim of the life, I don't quite know what he's going to do. And one would say, God is the ruler. God is the king. God is the one that does all these things. We don't need a contract. I understand the point of view, but in this game, for how dark and bad it was and what was going to happen to the United States going back as a colony to the British Crown, it got corrected. And in the correction came an entire shift from fraudulent banking to banking that has jurisdiction. And so somebody even said on Truth Social the other day that there's some video that's circulating about how the Vatican they control people by numbers and by their nativity certificate and so on, alluding that Russell's trying to do the same. No, he just corrected it. And your certificate, your birth certificate that you were born with, is how they buy and sell you, and it goes back through the Vatican. So that's a jurisdiction. But he corrected that. He went there and changed it. So what I'd like to do right now is see if we can't play this now that it's ready. And what I'll do is I'll just pause me for a second to see if I can get this in our queue, okay? So give me 1 second. Just sit back and be patient for 1 minute here. Now, the reason, thanks for waiting. The reason that I'm bringing this to your attention again, and for some of you, it'll be new. For some of you, it'll sound like it's new. And for others, you have knowledge and you'll understand some of this. But as I listen back to these things, I think this one in particular is paramount that you hear for a lot of reasons, because it speaks to what was going on with Kim Clement and why they posted that today. The Kim Clement part is suggesting that somebody has jurisdiction and will come out with that proven jurisdiction. And this particular interview speaks to that. And I want you to hear it. So fingers crossed that all the elements are technically going to work this time, because it's been a thing. If for some reason it does not, I'm just putting it out there because somebody has a lot of fun with me in all different directions often. If it does not, I will take it and post it on YouTube specifically and only, okay? But let's see if we can do this, okay? Because that's why I brought you here, so that we could see this and listen again. This is vital. If you really understand what's being said here and you take it in and digest it piece by piece, bit by bit, something will happen in you that will change the gears in which you perceive things. It will give you knowledge that you've been looking for and give you the closure as to why that fact has been the case. So, yep. Russell says the Bible's written in fiction because they syntax the Bible. When you understand the grammar, you understand that everything is written in fraudulent grammatical construct. So technically, the world kind of has to stop and correct, no matter what language they're in, no matter what country they're in. It can be translated, but the Bible was written in the fraudulent grammar. I can't really imagine the Bible being written in quantum, but that would be an interesting experience. But I think by then you would just sort of be experiencing the quantum, and you could take those tenets out of anything. But the Bible was syntaxed. Syntaxing means it's proving that it's written in fraud, and there's a way to do that. And you'll learn that once you get into your learning. Fear not, make it so. What's that mean? What does fear not, make it so mean? It means that you will learn the language of the quantum, and there's a way to prove that the grammar on the paper is fraudulent. And when you learn how to do that, it's called syntaxing. Russell and David Miller syntaxed the Bibles, and he told that story. He said that when they got to the Vatican, one of the nuns met them and said, "Oh, we've been studying all your syntaxing of the Bibles. It's fascinating." Because once you syntax it, you can kind of read between the lines to the other things it's saying. And that's what he did. So the Bibles are written in, they've been translated over time in the fraudulent grammar. And he basically corrected that too. So he's corrected every system. He's corrected the medical system. He's corrected the government systems. He took down the IRS. He took down everything. And they won't let that happen because they want to do it their way. Like an obstinate child that's going to be like, "I'm not listening to you, mother. I'm going to do it my way." Well, that's really what's happening in the world right now. And that will backfire on you because the 2-year-old has the keys to the car, and that's a problem. So when we move into a place of understanding what the Title IV flag really is, understanding what he's talking about in his movies, Piercing Dynasty and Last Flag Standing, these interviews give a lot of closure to that. And as I listen back to them, I think, wow, this is really valuable information you need to hear. So if you've heard it before, there's probably something you're going to get out of it. If you've never heard it before, it might feel like a lot at once, but it's okay. Just digest pieces and parts. Take what you can. So let's see if I can actually get this up and do it, okay? So thank you for being here together tonight, all of you. Let's see what we can do here. Okay. One sec.
One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul when he learns to...
Writer is your forum for healing, inspiring, and uplifting entertainment. Here is your host, Winifred Adams.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're going jolly out there today. It's a gorgeous sunny day here in SoCal, and I just want to share with you that we are having one of the best shows ever in the history of Making Life Brighter Radio with the 5G show we did a few weeks ago with Russell-J. Gould. And we have him back today live with us, and you will be able to ask your questions to him about anything. But before we get to that, I just want to do a little recap. We have really, taken a deep dive here with Russell into all the things and the performances that he's done over the years. And if you have questions about that, I invite you to go back and listen to the archives. And there are people listening all over the world to these shows. People are writing to me. People are talking to me about it. People are celebrating his performances and the fact that this word is getting out there. So I invite you to do your own homework and your own research on what he's done and the performances that he's had. The reason we're featuring this on Making Life Brighter Radio is because what he's done is revolutionary to the world of commerce, banking, and basically to the political world. And so since we're coming up upon that, we're going to touch on that again yet today. And we had a great show last week with Joey Herrick, and he is the founder of Lucy Pet Products. And if you haven't checked that out, please go back and listen to that show because that's going to shed a lot of light on the real natural pet food industry. And I switched my animals over to it, and I'm sharing it with all kinds of people. So you'd be interested in checking that out along with the outtake. But today, we're going to jump in by talking about Bitcoin. We're going to cover some quantum banking, and we're going to go into the elections committee and how maybe we can achieve peace in our world. And we are now going to have back our special guest, Russell-J. Gould, and he is the Commander-in-Chief and the Postmaster General of Planet Earth. Welcome back, Russell.
Well, hello. Pleasure to be back.
Thank you for coming and continuing this series with us. Our Conversations in Consciousness series has been covering your performances over basically the course of the last, years that you did all this from your 30s on up. And you've done some amazing things in the world that people need to really research and understand. So let's go back in, because the show we did on 5G has just gone bananas. People all over are listening to that show. And each week, more and more people are listening to that show, and that is a hot topic. And I know I was in Los Angeles yesterday. Everywhere I went, 5G was popping up on my phone. And it is something that is creating a heated debate in Topanga Canyon and Westlake and LA, across the nation and across the world. So tell us a little bit more about what you could do for people regarding the 5G and the network.
Yes, it's something that we should, as citizens, be cognizant of, and just, there's actually not a lot of there's a lot of data out there that tends to believe that and claim that it is negative towards our health. And so I just, when people go to sue or go to stop the 5G companies, they should really take a close look at the grammar and of how they're articulating their lawsuits. And they should take a look at how they're presenting their claims in the foreign courts. Because the United States came out of bankruptcy in 1999, the U.S. judicial system is nothing more than a collection agency harvesting the filing fees and making the attorneys rich off of elongated litigations that get nowhere for the people. So on October 1st, 2004, I actually became Chief Judge of the United States Supreme Court, and I'm the only acting citizen in the history of planet Earth here in the United States to disqualify an acting Supreme Court of a country. And so when you go in to pay your filing fees and state your claims against the 5G companies, you should really take a look at the War Castle's documentary on YouTube so you can have closure on how to kind of not approach things when you're going into your federal courts and going into your against the people that are giving us dosages of the 5G, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Now, if people wanted to have you come along and assist them, could they do that?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I do have a security team because I have to deal with security issues in different countries and different locations due to the fact that the court systems are all tied to the Universal Postal Union and out of Bern, Switzerland. What that means, Winifred, is the filing fees and the file stamps that you get on your lawsuits when you file a contract, are tied to the Universal Postal Union in Bern, Switzerland, and I disqualified their charter in 2001, and their court system is actually closed and is no longer to be used as a collection agency against the people. And so I will give those who hire my services, I will give them guidance on how to not fall into the pitfalls so they can go state their claims against the companies that are bringing this 5G apparatus against the people.
And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can email me directly at radio@makinglifebrighter.com, and I will field your questions directly to Russell for you. So now let's
yes.
People can definitely utilize your knowledge in the things that you have done in these performances worldwide, and people can do it a few ways. They can do it personally, which costs them a security team for you because you have to go out and do things that maybe are not necessarily safe for you to do. Is that right?
Yeah, for collection and for the enforcement on these contracts in quantum grammar. I unfortunately get caught up in the world of security enforcement, and the fiction world is not too happy with me when I show up in these locations and put the contracts on trial and basically mail myself or ship myself in and out of there along with the people that are claimants on the lawsuits. They have they would be on board what's called a C pass, and C passes are used during times of martial law. And I would encourage everyone on the planet to go down to the United Nations and see what is on top of the flag standards in and out of their respective countries, because you'll see the spear on top of all the flag standards at the United Nations, and they are at war with the people. And so sea passes is a duty that we must carry on us during times of martial law. And so because of this apparatus of war and this spookiness war they got, you see, there's no actual war on terrorism, because terrorism is spookiness. So they're at war with spookiness or fear. And so they're trying to create this apparatus of this worldwide phenomenon of this spooky war that there is no boogeyman. And so it's designed to just create a stage or a theater of fear to take your freedoms away from each and every person on this planet. So it's very sad to see.
And you can assist that. If people called you forward, and I'm not going to go back and reiterate what we've already talked about. People can go back and listen to the shows and look at War Castles and do their own homework. If they want a different world, they can do their homework. And we brought you down here to speak to people a few weeks ago, and people need to really research and understand the dialogues that we've already had. But if for example, people wanted to have change, you've said that they could call you forward to their representatives. And what would that do for them and their local areas or nationwide?
First of all, you would look at the concept of the contract, and you would change the location or the community's usury of how they are engaged in contract. What that means is that in their you would do away with the taxes. The taxes in the United States, the IRS was kicked out of the United States in 1999. Unfortunately, nobody can prove it. And so when you go to their collection agency, their courtrooms, you get tricked and trapped into filing fees and all the nonsense. And so I would help those around that, the usury of how they approach contract and their day-to-day function. And I know this is kind of, cliff note, and it's very difficult to get detail-orientated here because we have such a short span. But people can go to the War Castles documentary on YouTube and go to the overall thing and see how they've been trapped in the usury of their day-to-day lives. With the quantum world, we changed the usury of how people approach things. And so you don't get caught up in the spookiness of the war on terrorism. This is all nonsensical jargon. Some of the things that absolutely need to happen is the sending home of Homeland Security. This is a joke. This is designed to degrade the people of our country. And take your belt off, stand in line, put your finger on your nose, that sort of Simon Says sort of thing. And the days of peace and happiness when a family could go to the window and watch their loved ones come off the tarmac, those days are gone, and they need to come back. People, family, and putting friendship and trust and care to our fellow mankind needs to be brought forward here.
And how do we do that?
Well, you got to get rid of, I met with the Deputy Director of Homeland Security in 2004, and he told me specifically, he said, Homeland Security has zero authorization to exist as a corporation, but the American people are such bleeps that they're going to fall for it.
And so now that it's becoming...
That's unfortunate.
And what do people do? I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to put it simply so that the rest of the people understand this. How can they use you to make change?
Well, they're going to have to get me into location, take me to location, and take my security teams with me, because my security teams keep me safe. My problem has always been is that every time I show up, everybody takes off or running. Or if they don't take off or run, I mean government employees, they take off or running from me, run out of the buildings, those type of phenomenons.
Well, not because you're a mean person, but because you disqualify them.
Well, yeah, their authorization to exist as a corporation is no longer. And that's worldwide. See, I took down the Postal Union, which is the construct for usury for all these corporations, for corporate structure on a worldwide level. And so I disqualified their capacity to create sums and differences through their bureaus of weights and measures, which is how they articulate debt, how they articulate ley lines for navigation to claim lands. All of those things have been syntaxed by me and disqualified for 100% fraud. And so I've reauthorized that in a quantum construct to create a now space condition for performance in the contracts.
And you can actually, if people called you forward in a district and said, let's say in Los Angeles County, and said, we want Russell-J. Gould to come here and work for us to change, let's say, the water system or change the 5G that's been implemented, how would they do that?
Well, they'd get a hold of me, and then I would alert the local National Guard. And the military knows me very well over in California. I've met with I actually had them take down the flag. They had a tattered flag at the National Guard headquarters in Sacramento, and I had to go in there and make sure they had correct protocol on flag etiquette. So I made them take down the flag and put up an untattered flag in Sacramento. And I have quite a relationship with the military forces on the planet, who have looked at my techniques, and so I would alert the military, and then I would come in with the military to deal with the civilian sector because of the martial law. What that means is, at your governor's office in the state of California, state is a pronoun, of is an adverb, making California a verb. There's no such location as state of California because there's no such thing as a verb California. This is fiction. So it'd be of the California. That would be a fact. So fact and fiction can never meet. But in your governor's office for your state, the spear sits on top of the state flag, which means that during times of war, contract is suspended. So you're in a condition of state of martial law out there. You just don't know where your usury sits within it. So the citizens I would put them on a sea pass so that they'd have clearance for navigation. Simultaneously, we would correct the ones that didn't have authorization to be there, which is all your government structure, which has zero authorization to exist as a verb, because there's no such thing as California as a verb. And yet they manifest it and give closure and try to defend a concept that doesn't exist. This is fiction.
And you took it all down.
Me and David Hyphen-Wincole Miller, yes. He passed on, but yes, we certainly disqualified all the syntax on the planet.
And they recognize that, which is why you need the security now if you're going to go in there and do something.
Correct. Yeah.
And why is it so difficult?
Unfortunately, because they're in such a state of chaos, which means they're a verb that's out of control with zero authorization, they believe in their guns and clubs. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for the people with the guns and clubs, because they're only hurting their families and their loved ones when they look at the macro scope of what's been corrected. They need to stand down from these fraudulent orders that keep the people in bondage and keep the slavery and keep the 5G and all the things to create this yoke of control and this condition of state of chaos.
Very good. And you are the person that is now literally the authority to all these changes that can take place, and technically...
I am the change.
You are it. You're the commander-in-chief of planet Earth. You are the postmaster general. You have the authority to make these changes if people would wake up and do the research and see what those changes could be. But they're probably fearful of making change because what would that mean to them? And we're going to get into that when we come back. So we're just going to take a quick break, and we'll be back more live here with Russell-J. Gould. He is the commander-in-chief of planet Earth.
Welcome back to Making Life Brighter with Winifred Adams on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel, the preferred choice for conscious education and entertainment. For more information, please visit us at makinglifebrighter.com. If you have questions or comments, please email us at radio@makinglifebrighter.com. That's radio@makinglifebrighter.com. And now, back to the show with your host, Winifred Adams.
Thanks to everybody out there that's listening, and we see you worldwide. We see all of you that are listening. I get to see the breakdown of every city where there's somebody listening in the world and every country. And I just want to extend a warm welcome. Appreciate your feedback, all of your emails, and definitely all of your listenership. I invite you to share any of these shows, and you can always go to makinglifebrighter.com on the radio page, and there on the player you have all the archives and our special outtakes when we do them. So today we have return guest Russell-J. Colin Gould, and he is speaking to us about his performances over time, which gives closure on usury and the understanding of where citizens stand in relation to their country, their flag, their banking, and now I guess you could call it even politics. So we're going to get into that a little bit more, but I want to jump back in, Russell, about what you did at the Pentagon. Can you remind us of what it is your performance there was and why you did that?
Yes, since the Bush administration and the end of the bankruptcy in 1999, they had to fake a presidency and vacate the Constitution of the United States, which was the Florida Chad's election, where the federal government went to a foreign vessel in dry dock called the U.S. Supreme Court to get an opinion about who their new leader would be, which would be the president. They had to physically leave the District of Columbia and vacate the Constitution and the guidelines for a president, right? So there were no presidential elections. It's all just been a circus of fiction ever since 1999, because the Congress didn't reauthorize, they didn't come forward, take the spires off the flag standards in the governor's offices, and they didn't reauthorize the government, which means the whole thing since 1999 has been fake, right? This happened 19 years ago now.
A powerful statement. So how have we existed throughout that time in a fake government?
Well, you've done it through the citizens' lack of the knowledge. If citizens don't have knowledge, and they're certainly not given closure, excuse me, then they have no capacity to state a claim, and the apparatus got so big and strong. And so what I did is because I knew there was no presidents, and I know that there's no presidential election, I ended up being shoved into a position by the U.S. Pentagon and the postal militaries. What I mean by that is, before you go into your branch of military, you go get your postal identification registration number first, and then you go into your branch of military, which means you're fighting postal wars. Everything is about shipping you as a vessel and shipping cargo, and this is a whole phenomenon that I disqualified at the Universal Postal Union, is their capacity to create war. So what I did is I conducted a military court-martial every 45 days in the Washington Mall in Washington, D.C. from 2004, from December 12th, 2004, when I was pushed into a martial law condition of state. What that means is on February 20th of 2003, I had established a peace treaty with the Secretary of the Navy's office, and the peace was breached by the Pentagon on December 12th, 2004. And so I conducted a military court-martialing, and I learned a tremendous amount about military protocol and how the shipping really works on the military end of things to control planet Earth. And so it wasn't an effort in vague. It was an effort where it was a learning curve on my part to learn certain lessons that I needed to learn to control and command militaries to help the planet. And so it was an education on my part, and I was being educated and guided simultaneously to learn things by the U.S. military branches. And so I conducted a military court-martialing against George Walker Colin Bush and the Bush regime from December 12th, 2006. No, 2004. I apologize. 2004, and I conducted it all the way in Washington D.C. till 2007. I believe that was the last time I conducted a military court-martialing. And I encourage all the officers, because they didn't take it lightly. They would put 40 video cameras on me with microphone dishes about 20 feet away from me, and they videotaped every trial date. And so they would put they'd have their cameras on me, and then they would put Apache helicopters and Chinook helicopters above my head, and they'd lean out the window with their cameras and look down at me. And so I learned a lot, but all those lessons were learned to help the people on the day that the citizens would ask for my help. And so that's why, I would come through the military to come into California, because of the governor in the state of California has declared war against the state constitution and suspended all rights of all citizens in the state of California by his advertisement of the spire on top of the flag standard, which suspends contract during time of war. So I encourage everybody to walk down to your governor's office, and this is not a debate. This is factual. This is, you'll see the spear, or like a little spear on top of your flags at the governor's office and in your embassies worldwide, right? So all of this has been put in place to enslave and use the military to with the war of spookiness and the terrorism, the war on fear, to enslave the citizens of planet Earth. And I have authorization and the knowledge to stop those militaries in their tracks, as well as the credentialing to reauthorize it for the benefit of the people.
That's powerful. And how is it that you don't do that now in Washington, for example? Why not walk in there and change the game?
Well, in Washington, they are so corrupt. I hate to tell you that. I will give a sample of how martial law works. So when Pakistan announced their martial law, the first thing that Pakistan did was the military went in and they rounded up all the attorneys and put them in like little concentration camps. I wonder why they did that. Couldn't be because the attorneys were controlling the contracts, which controlled the people, would it? And then I got to watch. It was pretty funny. They only advertised it one time. I think it was on Fox News or CNN. It's one of those fake, phony channels. The news broadcasters were going, but they put all the attorneys in jail, and then they threw the newscast crews in jail too. Saying basically, butt out of our martial law. That we're doing it right. We're throwing all the attorneys in jail first to help the people. Well, so you really have to think about So Washington D.C. is, to answer your question, Washington D.C. is controlled by a bunch of attorneys,
and not all attorneys are bad. Just to put out there, some people don't know, but you're saying there's a group of people that are absolutely clear what's gone on and what is going on, and they're perpetuating it willfully.
Yes, and they're more than welcome. I'm authorizing the Pentagon to release the footage on the court-martialing to see all the generals and admirals that were sued and brought and charged under AWOL, walking without papers, without leave. And so there was a huge trial that was conducted in Washington, D.C. by me. And it was, like I said, I learned a tremendous amount. All that knowledge can be used to help the people right now. So it's a good thing to learn. It was an unfortunate thing to go through because they really beat the crud out of me, so to speak.
Physically, they did, and they would have if you had surrendered your position and given up the Title IV flag that you now have. Yeah, which is the flag of the United States.
Unfortunately, my partner, David Winkle Miller, surrendered the flag on his behalf in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in federal court. And we'll be releasing the audio on how he did that in federal courts and how he surrendered his position to use the flag. Unfortunately,
but you have you have the authorization now yet for that flag, even though he surrendered his position on it. Doesn't mean you did.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, I was in handcuffs and beat down pretty hard, severely by the U.S. Federal Marshal Service. But they wanted to show me one of I was dealing with the U.S. Marshal Service because I was in custody, of course, and fraudulently. And they, basically told me that they were going to show me that my partner didn't have the backbone to be claiming what he was claiming. And they did on that day. He surrendered the flag. And that was unfortunate. It was very sad it broke my heart to see him having to surrender his flag position, because I know how hard I had fought to maintain my credentialing and my flag authorization for the Title IV 1 to 1.9 dimension flag.
And they beat you pretty heavily, and then they apologize and they let you go. That's what people need to understand is you didn't do this as a criminal thing. This was something they just didn't like that you outwitted them on.
Yes, and they're upset. They were upset, and they put it in the congressional record in their fraudulent grammar. And they, when we filed for copyrights on the flag on August 12th, 1999. And so they made a mistake and put it in their record, so to speak, and they held an emergency. The National Security Agency, I think it was, or National Security Council. I forget exactly how they went about it, but they held an emergency meeting, and they were like in Kosovo or something like that. And with Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton was like, "Oh, I guess we can throw away all Title IV contracts now." There's, something to that effect. I can't remember the exact wordage on it, but yeah.
If you got in front of Bill Clinton, if you did get in front of Bill Clinton right now, what would happen?
If I got in front of Bill Clinton right now, I'd probably pull out the cameras, and he'd probably get his ass beat real bad, because he deserves every bit of it for what he's done to the people on this planet. How he's bombed countries, how the genocide that he has created, the infiltration and the drugs and all the things, the fake war on drugs, by the way, worldwide. This is a fake war on drugs. You are being hoodwinked to believe that there's a war on drugs. This is an operation run by their little handlers like the Clintons. And if I got in front of Clinton right now and I had my security teams there, I would hand out a lesson that he deserves every bit of what he would have coming to him. I'm a very kind person, but sometimes there's tough love.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
I disqualified the Universal Postal Union's authorization to create money and to create stamps. And so I have my own stamp system that the citizens can use and create their own C-passes to move them outside of the police state. And you could purchase that. You could go about that on, let's see. You could go to www.quantum-bank.world, and you could purchase the gold-backed stamps. What this means is my stamps are backed by actual equity, which is in-ground or materials that I have made precious metals, and so my stamps are backed by gold and not by promissory notes or something in the future. So it creates a now space of quantum banking for the citizens to have surety for their navigations, and they can use them on their as they change their day-to-day functions over of their lifestyles. So they can have their own surety policies instead of insurance, because in as a prefix to a word means no. So most of the citizens of the world have insurance, which is actually no-surance. This will actually they can create surety bonds backed by assets that are in my postal construct in the now space.
Joey,
you bet.
You announced yourself in a quantum title with quantum authorization. Have you ever witnessed any of these performances by Russell?
I witnessed the trial in Reno of 2018.
And what happened there?
Trial, where the chief basically disclosed not a good word to use, but so the public can understand, he basically told us and explained to us with evidence of what had happened with the corporation with David Wynn Miller. And also it was a eulogy for David Wynn Miller as well. So
And so
I took them down to the post.
Witness that.
Yeah, I took them down to the post office. Yeah. Tell them about what you witnessed at the post office, Joey.
He showed us how to do the postal methods to basically change our address in the correct quantum manner with the post office. How to do that.
And what would that do for you if you did?
It's basically where we're capturing the change of address form because it's written in adverb verb. So therefore, they don't have to really follow it, but they'll have to follow it when you capture it. So you put a fiction stamp on there and you autograph it, making you the postmaster of the form so that they have to accept your contract, and you're catching them in joinder with that. So they have to change your address to the quantum form.
We'll be right back. We have to take a quick break. Thank you, Joey. Hang on. We'll be right back. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio. There is more. We're not done with this conversation yet. We'll be right back with more Russell-J. Gould right here.
Welcome back to Making Life Brighter with Winifred Adams on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel, the preferred choice for conscious education and entertainment. For more information, please visit us at makinglifebrighter.com. If you have questions or comments, please email us at radio@makinglifebrighter.com. That's radio@makinglifebrighter.com. And now, back to the show with your host, Winifred Adams.
Hope everybody's going jolly out there today. You are listening to Making Life Brighter Radio, and we're going to continue our last segment today with Russell-J. Gould. And when we went to break, we had caller Joey on the line. We kept him on the line because I want to finish that commentary. He was there in Reno with Commander-in-Chief, and Commander-in-Chief had taken them to the post office to show them how to operate a quantum system. Russell, could you explain what it is you did and then what happened?
Well, we looked at the performance on contract. What that means is when we went to the post office, I showed them on top of the flag standard was the ball. And the ball means that somebody's recruiting contract there. It's a recruitment center. And so I went into protocol under flag etiquette, explaining to the clerk, number one, who I am, what I was doing, how the fee had been paid for freight, and how to cancel the stamps and all the things that were required there. And she was very cordial and she goes, this is correct. This is what I have to do. And so she did her job like they're supposed to. And we filed in the contract. And basically what that was is I was changing the mail location for our corporate structure. David Winkle-Miller and myself had set up a C lane to his location in Milwaukee, and I had to change it to my location where I was living because he had passed on. That way the corporate structure for authorization and the shareholders meetings and all the things that we were conducting for corporate structure, and at that time it was just David Winkle-Miller and myself in the corporate structure, and that's right now David passed, and we had a living will, so to speak, a testament on how we were going to continue to handle the corporate structure of the Federal Postal Court and the banking and the things that we had set up, David and I had set up.
But so you had done it in quantum, David, correct? You had done it in the quantum.
Yes, I complied with David Winkle-Miller and my contract, and we had another shareholder at the time that the shareholders meetings contract, I fulfilled the duties that were on contract when David Winkle-Miller passed away.
And the point to this, though, is
to do that, and I did it within the 45-day timeline of him passing to maintain the rules of the continuance of the evidence.
Very good.
So
very good.
Was correct. And the post office in Switzerland sent me the receipt on the mailing on that. So we moved the corporate structure of how the postal court would to work and how the banking works into my location, which was the correct thing to do.
The people need to understand why you would do any of that way, and what that would mean to them is that the post office recognized you in what you did and who you were and the authority you had in your structure, in your system, and why, and they complied with that.
Yes.
That's what people need to understand, and Joey was witness to that.
I've not been in there. throwing guns or bombs at people. I'm very peaceful, and I'm a very humble guy as I approach things. And Joey was a witness to how to go in there and be real peaceful and humble. Is that true, Joey?
Correct. And Mural-Meta-Biggs was also there.
All right, guys. We're going to call it there for now. I don't know what happened, actually, so I'm going to have to go in and dissect it. But that is par for the course on this full moon weekend. Holy cow, has it been a day like that all day? So we are just going to take that with a grain of salt, and I will see to it that the full thing is posted tomorrow sometime, okay? So you can go back to YouTube and see I'll repost it in addition to this, so you can see that. I don't know why it's voiding sound. I have no no answer to that. I can't tell you. It's there, it's playing, but it's not playing. So, okay. Anyway, the point is what Kim Clement was saying. He speaks to in here. He talks about the authorizations. He talks about what it's going to take to pull him forward. He talks about what is needed to and why he's that authority. You know, who that is and the witness to who that is. So I'm not worried, guys. I've dealt with this for years, long before you ever met me. I've been in this thing. I've been hacked so many times. I've watched the files on my computer move around while I'm speaking on air. Somebody else is visiting. I've had my computer unplugged and turned off, and they still get into it. So, it's the way it is. I don't take it personally anymore. That's the thing. You see, you're being wound up in these narratives to take everything really super personally and then fight. We don't get to a better world by fighting. And he made that point here. He made so many points here. I really want you to absorb that, because I think it's food for thought that's very critical in the days ahead. You're welcome. I'm happy to do this. Really, I am. I just wish all the other things would be as easy as it is for somebody that doesn't know this. In other words, I know what to do. I know how to make this and give it to you, but I'll tell you what, somebody else is playing ball with me in real time on a regular basis, and it's hard for other people to watch. But if other people had it happen to them the same way it happens to me, then they would sit up straight and go, wow, that really happens. People really do that. Yeah, they do. So what do you stand on? You know, I'm not afraid of it. At this point, I laugh at it like, okay, all right, here we go. We're in this. And this is what we do. It's not even a scary thing. It's just annoying. But that's how they get you to, Well, if you're annoyed, if you're anything, if you take it any way whatsoever, it's going to be throwing you off of your center and out of harmony. So the point is, he's given you a lot of closure here. I'll make sure the whole thing is up tomorrow on YouTube so you can watch that again or listen to it. It's important. He gives really sound closure in these, and he gave so much information. It was over people's heads a few years ago. Now that we've gone down the road a little further, you can go back and listen to that and say, wow, okay, so there it is. And yet we went through all of the nonsense of the big C word. We didn't need to. We didn't need to do everything that has happened in between. And some will say, well, we had to because we had to clean up the swamp and do the thing. And you don't have to clean up the swamp. That's what I'm trying to share with you here on over and over. What Mike Gill is going through, he doesn't technically need to go through. what other people have gone through, it could have ended by now. It could have been corrected. Even the masters that have come spiritually have said, we're slow to the party in getting it. We're not getting it very quickly, and we need to wake up and get it. So here's like the tutorial has been put back in your hands. You're not even relying on somebody else to do it. With Trump or somebody else, you're relying on them to do something for you. But in this, it's been done for you and handed to you. Now you go and follow the stages and steps, and it's been done for you. But you need to do it. The other way is thank you very much for saving us and it's all over. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't even work like that spiritually. So I hope this will be food for thought on the more technical points. And it just speaks to what we're dealing with in narratives. And the narratives are switching and shifting really quickly right now. So to keep it steady while all your bugs swim around in your body today in the full moon energies. Okay, so a little bit of parasite cleansing is in order, and maybe we can get rid of our own tyrannical parasites to help us move forward in harmony and feel the feedback of energy come back to you when you take control of your own usuries and you see it for what it is. Instead of being disturbed or angry or frightened, you actually just correct it. And then you say, aha, okay, great, a solution. How cool. And in that way, we have a lot of work in front of us. But this is the history of what some one person did. That's a lot. I don't know anybody else technically that's up for that task or could have. He is definitely a unique individual and has taken that on full bore. So let's just pray for him and pray for his performances upcoming, and that he will do what needs to be done so that more and more people just get it and they see it for what it is. So thank you all for being here. Go Jolly, and I will get that up with the rest of it. There's not much left actually, but there is a bit. And again, I have no clue what didn't translate, so I will dissect and find out. Alrighty, we will talk to you again, and I do have more. I do have more of these. So, alrighty, I will have them readied, and we'll pray that we move past the full moon part. Go Jolly, everybody. Have a good night, okay? Take care. Good night, everybody. Thanks for spending your Saturday.